Hello and welcome to this week's Christmas craft. So today I'm going to show you how you can make your own custom Christmas jumper at home using acrylic paints and an old jumper. So what you're going to need for this is a jumper from a charity shop or an old jumper you've got lying around, or you can buy a new jumper if you want to, and some acrylic paint and an iron. And that's about it really. For the design on this jumper, I've taken some tracing paper, traced the design I want onto it, and now what I'm doing is with a white chalk pencil, copying the design onto the back of the tracing paper, and I'm doing that so that I can flip the tracing paper over and etch the chalk pencil straight onto my jumper. Now what I've done, just to make sure that the jumper is nice and taut while we're painting it, is taken the area that I want to paint and I've just stretched it over a cutting board, and that's just to make sure that the jumper is nice and tight and it's not snagging and it's not baggy, and I'm painting the exact area I want to paint. I've also popped a bit of masking tape around it just to make sure that I stay within the centre, within the area that I want the design to be in. So now that that's copied through to the other side of the chalk pencil, I'm going to take the tracing paper, flip it over and line it up in the centre of the area that I want it to be painted in, so roughly in the centre of the front of the jumper. And I'm just going to secure it down with a bit of masking tape to make sure it doesn't move while I'm tracing it through. And then I'm going to take a pencil, just a normal pencil, you can use a pen, whatever you want, and I'm just going to go over the lettering, so that a trace over the lettering, so that on the other side of it, the white chalk pencil will be left on the actual jumper, so that then I can use it as a guide to paint in a minute. Now I'm going to take my white light-bodied acrylic paints. You can use heavy-bodied, I've just used light body for this, popped a bit in a tub, and now I'm just going to paint, just using quite a stiff brush onto the jumper. I'm using a stiff brush just because I want the lines to be nice and neat, and also this jumper is a little bit fibrous. So now I'm just going to paint a white base layer across all of the areas that I want filled in. So now we need to iron the paint once it's dry onto the shirt. So the paint's already on the shirt, this helps seal it and create a nice layer on the paint. Now you need your iron to be as hot as possible. If you're nervous about putting your iron straight onto the paint, you can use a sheet of paper in between the paint and the jumper and the iron. The paper won't set on fire as long as you're not holding the iron in the same place for ages, so don't be too nervous about this. So now that I've ironed this, I've ironed the paint properly onto the shirt, it's adhered nicely, and I'm just going to take my board again, pop the shirt back around the board so that we've got a nice taut surface to paint on, and then I'm going to go over my second layer in more detail. So I'm just going over this layer of white again with a second layer of white, and this time I'm using a much softer brush. I'm actually using what is probably really a sign writing or a lettering brush, and it's just giving me some nice smooth coverage, and I just want to go over this because my design is going to be mostly white rather than colour. But at this point, if you wanted to, you could go over it with colour, and at this point you can start adding your colour in. The white is very much a base layer, just to make sure that you've got something solid for your paint to stick to, and also it helps your colours pop out a little bit more. So like I said, I want my design to be mostly white, but at this point you can absolutely start putting your colour over the top, and your colour will be a lot stronger than the white, so you won't need to do a second layer of white. So now that I've added that second layer of white, I'm just going to go in and tidy up the edges a little bit. I'm mixing some paint here, some blue and some black, just to try and match the colour of the jumper a bit. And I'm doing that just to clean up the edges of the car a little bit, a few of the edges on the writing, and a little bit where I've gone out of the lines on the white. And you can see as well, because the jumper is quite fibrous, there are some slightly messy lines. So with a smaller detail brush and some light body paint, I'm just going in there and I'm going to tidy up the edges. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of colour to this. Like I say, I don't want too much colour in it, just a little bit, so just a few little Christmassy details. So now, still using light body paint, I'm going to paint in some little Christmassy details, just some holly wreaths and things like that. You can use heavy body acrylic paint for this. I've just used light body because that's what I've got most of at the moment, and also I find it does run a little bit better with it being on a slightly more fibrous jumper. It flows a little bit better on the jumper. If I had a really smooth sweatshirt, then I probably would have been able to use a heavy body paint a little bit easier. Where I'm using it over the white as well, it doesn't make too much difference, but a heavy body paint is obviously thicker, a light body paint isn't as thick, but either works fine. So I've just given the jumper a little bit of time to dry, and it doesn't take long at all with it being acrylic paint, but I've just given it plenty of time to make it needs to not be sticky. You don't want it to be any tacky at all. And again, I've just popped my sheet of paper over the top of it, and then nice and slowly going over the top of it with the iron. Don't worry about the paper setting on fire. Unless you sit the iron on top of the paper for a while, it's not going to set on fire. I prefer to do it this way rather than putting the iron straight onto the paint. People have told me you can do it, but I just prefer to have the iron over the top. It also just makes the iron move a bit smoother as well, I find. So you do need to just give it a really good iron. And what this process does is it adheres the paint to the jumper. So acrylic paint, if any of you have used it before and let it get on your clothes, you'll know that acrylic paint doesn't come off your clothes at all. But ironing it on just makes it really adhere to the paint, and it ends up coming away feeling quite like a print, like an actual printed design on a jumper would. So here we are, the finished product. So this is going to be a gift for someone that is into rallying, and it's custom just for them, unique for them. So a great gift, and it took me a couple of hours, but it's something that'll last for ages, and I think it makes quite a nice gift for people.